Hello and welcome. I'm Jamie and you are listening to the Everyday Queen podcast, the place where we celebrate everyday queens conquering their inner BS and doing epic things in life, love and business. This podcast is for the mamas navigating mum life, the boss babes killing it in their careers, the biz babes forging their own paths, and all of you queens in between. I'm here to share with you the real, the raw, and the BS-free tips and tricks on turning your inner mean into an inner queen so that you can show up every day fierce, powerful, and unstoppable. Let's get to it. Ladies, hello and welcome to another solo episode with me. This is actually another kind of random, unplanned, impromptu episodes that I was just inspired to sit down and talk about. I'm kind of challenging myself at the moment. So when I first launched my podcast, I was really planning the topics out and making sure I did heaps of research so that I had heaps to talk about. But I'm challenging myself at the moment to try and get a little bit more in flow with things and to just jump on and talk like I'm sitting down with my besties and chatting to them. And it's actually a lot easier to do than I thought it was going to be. So there's something that really bothers me when I'm listening to a podcast and when it sounds like it is super scripted. I don't know what it is, but it just irks me. It's just one of those things that, I don't know, it makes it a little bit harder to listen to because it's like, I can tell that you've just planned this whole thing and you're literally just reading from a script. Anyway, that is obviously being said without judgment because podcasting is not as easy as I thought it was going to be, but I feel like it's one of those things where the more that you just do it, the better it's going to be. So anyway, today I want to talk about pivoting. And no, I'm not talking about Ross from Friends' pivot as he is directing people up the stairs with a couch. Pivoting is one of those things where we get all caught up in our head about it and we get super scared mainly of the judgment that surrounds it. And when I talk about pivoting, I'm not just talking about pivoting in business, although that is kind of what inspired this podcast, but I'll get to that after. But the same information, the same conversation can be had for pivoting in your career, in relationships, really in anything in life. It's one of these things that for some reason we have in our heads that once we've set our mind to something and declared it to everyone, that we are then not allowed to change our mind. It's super silly though, right? Like if something isn't serving you anymore, why do you stick with it? Just for the sake of other people's opinions. Anyway, so background behind this podcast is that I am in a group full of other service-based businesses, and one of the beautiful girls in there asked this week about her business. So she currently, I believe, has a VA business or a social media management business, something along those lines, because that is how she thought would be the best way to make money, and that kind of has proven true for her. But the question raised because she said that it's just not an area she's passionate about, and that in fact where she really saw herself or would like to see her business was more in the realm of mindset. But she obviously had a lot of limiting beliefs around that because in her mind, she kept telling herself that she needed to stay in that VA or social media management space because that is how she could make money. And she couldn't see how she could make money as a mindset coach or in the mindset space. She posed a question asking for advice on what people thought she should do. And it just really resonated with me because on my business journey, so for those of you who don't know, I first launched my business in 2017. I had just finished my integrative nutrition coaching certification, and I decided that I really hated my day job as a pharmacist. I was so over it. And I think not only did I need a creative outlet, but I needed somewhere else to focus my time. And the bonus for me was that this had potential to earn me money so that maybe I wouldn't have to stay in that job any longer. So I launched a health coaching business, and I basically just started sharing information on my Instagram. I had a personal Instagram. I didn't even create a new one or anything. I just converted that over and started sharing information. From doing that, I networked and I met a lot of people online, and a network marketing opportunity fell into my lap. So that was my first pivot. I went from this idea that I would build my own coaching business into jumping on board a network marketing opportunity and rolling with what they already had set up, which just so happened to be a product that I really love alongside a program that was built based off the integrative nutrition certification that I had done. So it was literally just like that opportunity was made for me. It was meant to be. So then fast forward about 12 to 18 months into that little journey, and I don't know, something just wasn't sitting right for me, and I felt like I had so much more to give. I still really loved the products, and I still do to this day, but I wanted to find another way to do things. So I started working with a business coach, and this was my second pivot. So working with that business coach, we were really narrowing things down because, as you know, in business, you need a niche, and the more specific your niche is, the better things are to start with. So while I was narrowing down my niche, I kind of came to the realization, obviously health is my space, health is my forte, that is where my background is, that's where everything for me starts. And I realized from working as a pharmacist just how much stress affects us, and how stress really, for me at that time, was like the root of all of my issues. And from studying not just integrative nutrition, but also functional medicine, I learned really just how much stress affects our body as a whole. Like that on its own is a whole other podcast topic, because we would be here all night if I even started diving into that. So that was my next pivot. I decided that rather than being so broad with health coaching and trying to help everyone, that I wanted to work with people like me, people who were super motivated in their careers, but they'd kind of lost themselves in that, and they were feeling stressed and burnt out and all the rest of it. So for me, I just felt so passionate about that topic, and it was an easy transition. However, I did have a lot of limiting beliefs and just inner absolute crap come up from working with those coaches, because I was like, what are people going to think? Like, first I launched this health coaching business, and then next minute I've joined up with network marketing, and now I'm going off on another tangent and I'm doing something else. And I guess it kind of makes you feel like you're a bit, I don't know, like airy-fairy, I guess. When the truth is that pivoting is totally cool. And especially when you're pivoting to narrow down in something, that's the base of all good business strategy. But, this is the stuff that we tell ourselves. So that was my second pivot. And now I have just made my third pivot, and probably my favorite pivot of all. So I've told this story a few times. I have realized that while stress for me is definitely a really big issue, and the base behind a lot of my health problems and all the rest of it, the stress itself actually wasn't the root cause. I realized that I cause a lot of the stress that I feel myself because of my underlying limiting beliefs and self-sabotaging behaviors. So, of course, if I am experiencing this, then I know chances are that there are other people out there experiencing the same thing. So this has been my third pivot. And again, when I decided this, I was like, here we go. I'm going to have people questioning me yet again on what I'm doing now and, when am I going to just decide on something and stick to it? And the truth is, never. Because one thing that I have learned in my 3 very small years in business is that you have to be forever growing and moving and meeting up with some sort of demand. Like if there is a new trend, you have to be on it. If you have had a new idea that you just feel has to be shared, you've got to act on it. So I am firmly of the opinion that pivots are not only completely allowed, but they are 110% completely necessary. The other thing is that we all change as people. So as you change and grow as a person, your business needs to change and grow with you. So that's obviously in relation to business. So my advice for the girl who posted was actually what actually lights you up, because there is no sense in trying to build a business around something that doesn't even light you up. Because do you know what? If you're going to settle in a business that just feels like a job, you actually should just go and get a job. Because at the end of the day, most jobs are far less stressful than owning a business, and at least it's guaranteed money. On the topic of having a job, I think that it's really important to note that if you've found yourself in a career that doesn't light you up anymore, it doesn't make you feel passionate about it or anything along those lines, it is equally as important for you to branch out, and it is totally okay to pivot in your career as well. Because I, again, have been there. I studied for 5 years to be a pharmacist. I was an intern for a year, and I worked so freaking hard to get that damn degree and get my registration. And I continued to work hard even after I was registered to try and, work my way up this ladder to be a manager. And then I wanted more and more and more. And then I realized that I was stuck in a job that I didn't even like anymore, that I'd lost all passion for. And the thought of going to work every day just depressed me. But I felt like because I'd invested so much in this career that I didn't have a choice but to stay there. Obviously, I have since learnt my lesson and, now I'm here. So there's actually a quote that I see pop up all the time, and it's something along the lines of the things that come to you are not random, they're actually your calling and that they're your purpose. So I really want to make note of that, because if you're feeling called to pivot or for a change or whatever, there's a reason behind it. And it's really important that you don't ignore it. No, you do not need to quit your job and go all in on the next business venture that falls in your lap, or quit your job and do nothing while you figure out what you want to do. You definitely need to obviously use your brain and make smart decisions. We're all adults here. But I think it's important to really act on those things that come to you, or at least investigate them and give them the time of day and the space in your mind to work out how it could work for you and what it could possibly be for you. There is one more space in life that I think is totally okay to pivot in, but it's not really spoken about as being okay to pivot. and that is relationships. So we all are usually quite happy to let go of friendships that no longer serve us. And if you're not, then that is a space that you need to work on, because sometimes we find ourselves surrounded by people who are actually not there with our best interests at heart. And it's important to move on from those relationships because they will not serve you and they will not take you to where you need to be. Tony Robbins always says, show me your friends and I will show you your future. And it just rings so true. You know, they say that you become the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. So doesn't that make you really want to be careful who is in your circle? For me, it definitely does. So that is something that I have had to do a lot of work on, because I am a massive people pleaser, which means that at the end of the day, I want everyone to like me. And it's so silly because at the end of the day, I also don't really care. But that's an area for me that I continue to work in. But yeah, I think it's important to make note that not just in friendships, I think in relationships and serious loving relationships, it is equally as important that you address the issues. And if that relationship is no longer serving you, whether it's been 2 years of being together, 5 years of being together, 10 years of being together, or even more, it is okay to pivot away from that relationship. Because at the end of the day, life is short. It feels like some days are so long. And actually, I've heard this referred to in my mum's group. The days are long, but the years are short. And obviously, there is a lot more to this to be spoken about. But I did just briefly want to touch on the idea that if you are finding yourself stuck or in a relationship that you are no longer happy in, I just want to tell you that it is okay to move away from that, to shed that relationship and to pivot away from it. And it is more than okay. In fact, it's actually necessary for you and for the other person. So on that note, I am going to finish up. Thank you again, as always, for listening. I have some super exciting interviews coming up for everyone, and I just can't wait to share it all with you. So watch this space. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you love this episode, be sure to let me know by leaving a review or sharing and tagging me in your stories. If you aren't already following me on social media, come and get your daily dose of BS-free inspiration at Jamie Lee White. While you're there, click the link in my bio to download my free workbook, 3 Steps to Overcoming Your Inner BS. That's it from me today. I can't wait to chat to you in the next episode.